Let's jump into this preview against Houston, okay? Because it's an interesting one for a lot of reasons. But let's go ahead and look at the ESPN side of things here. And listen, I'm not a huge fan of ESPN and their tracking system in terms of matchup predictor, but I think it's a pretty good indicator right now without an official line what we could probably expect in terms of Vegas and the opening line, which will come out tomorrow at some point. And we'll discuss what Kenpom and Bart Torvik think the line should be for this matchup. But as you can see, Houston comes into this matchup number 6 in the country, 9-0 in the Big 12, number 1 overall within the conference. They are coming in on a 13-game winning streak, are the Cougars. The Red Raiders have the second longest streak in, as you can see right there, with 5 straight victories. JT Toppin will be the leading scorer for any team involved in this matchup. I guess the only 2 involved. I don't know why I made it sound like there was more, but there's only 2. But the thing with Houston, and they continue to prove it each and every year with Kelvin Sampson, is they are absolutely relentless when it comes to the defensive side of the basketball floor. Averaging 55.3 points allowed. I mean, they are some absolute dogs on the defensive end. And they can score a little bit too, not too far behind Texas Tech in terms of scoring. Now, when you look at it in terms of the Big 12 outlook here, as we switch websites and we head on over to the Big 12 site in terms of leaders, you can see that the Red Raiders have the 3rd best scoring offense in the Big 12. Houston down at 9, about 5.5 points behind. Now, the key difference in this one, Texas Tech actually has a pretty damn good defense. A lot of people don't think so, but they've been really, really good the past 5 games. And you can tell that they've made some adjustments, most notably in the front court with Vetty and JT Toppin playing a lot more alongside each other. Texas Tech has the 4th best scoring defense in the Big 12, a shade under 65 points per game. That being said, Houston allows damn near 10 less points per game on average than Texas Tech and 8 points less than the next team in the Cincinnati Bearcats. They are a really, really crazy defense, and you can go down here and see the margin in terms of their scoring offense and their defense. They come in to this matchup averaging 20.7 points more per game than they allow, right? Texas Tech, pretty damn good as well, right there at 16.8. There's a clear top 4 in the Big 12, in my opinion, in terms of teams, and it does not include the Kansas Jayhawks or the Baylor Bears. No, I think the clear-cut 4 best teams in the Big 12 right now, heading into February, are clearly Houston at 1, Iowa State at 2, Texas Tech at 3, and Arizona at 4, okay? And I get it. The margin is right there the same for BYU. BYU just doesn't have as many good wins as Arizona does, okay? And sure, I get it. The Caleb Love shot from 55 feet may, really impact my thinking there, but he made it. So it doesn't matter. They won that basketball game. I think those are the clear-cut 4 best teams in the Big 12. Now, we look at the field goal percentage aspect of this. Again, Texas Tech has an historic offense going on for the Red Raiders this season, and we'll talk a little bit more about it and even discuss what Grant McCasland said on the Sports Now or College Sports Now podcast with Matt Norlander as well. But Texas Tech is uber efficient, 2nd best field goal percentage in the Big 12 at nearly 50% shooting from the field. Now, Houston, they're pretty solid at 46, but the thing is they only allow teams to shoot 36. Something's got to give there. As Texas Tech allows, about 41%. So there's a 5% difference. Just drastically, though, difference between what Texas Tech does normally in terms of scoring the basketball from the field and what Houston allows. We're talking about nearly 13%. Now, another interesting aspect of this, these are the 2 best shooting teams in the Big 12. Simple and plain. BYU's close to up there as well, Baylor as well. But when you look at the percentages and just the absolute shooters on each team, the Red Raiders and the Cougars are easily the best 2 shooting teams in the Big 12. The interesting part about that is Houston the best defensive team at guarding the perimeter in terms of impacting how many threes teams make? No, they're not the best, but they're pretty damn close, allowing basically a 30% three-point percentage to their opponents this year, while Texas Tech is allowing 31.5. So I think that could be a critical difference here, because if Texas Tech is closer to the 38% they typically shoot from three, say they get to 40, I think that drastically impacts their chances of winning this basketball game. But if it's closer to, the 30% mark, I think Houston may actually boat race the Red Raiders because it is hard as hell to win at the Fertitta Center down there in Houston. Now, another interesting aspect of this game is the rebounding side of things. Houston and Texas Tech are pretty neck and neck, honestly. But the interesting part is they're neck and neck in both the team rebounding, how they get their rebounds in terms of actual total rebounds, and how they limit the opponent's rebounding. Texas Tech is second in the Big 12 in terms of opponent rebounds per game at about 30.5, as you can see right there. Houston's not too far behind at 31.7%. The biggest thing to me, though, going down here is the offensive rebounding side of things. Houston is really good at offensive rebounds, okay? 13.2 per game. Texas Tech about 1.5 behind at 11.7. That's going to be a critical difference in this game in terms of the second chance opportunities. If Texas Tech gets a stop, they have to get a defensive rebound and get out in transition so that Houston defense doesn't get set. If they give the Cougars more opportunity at second chance points, this game could get ugly, okay? Specifically at home for the Cougars, where they just simply do not lose with Kelvin Sampson as the head coach now in the Big 12. I mean, they have been the most dominant team in the Big 12 since their arrival last year. They have been exceptional, okay? And rebounding is one of the places that they do it. Now, it's interesting from the standpoint of rebound margin. Texas Tech and Houston are very close. 6.6 in terms of the difference for the Red Raiders, 6.4 for Houston. Now, another interesting aspect of this is the turnover battle. The margin is drastically different in terms of who creates turnovers and the difference in terms of margin, right? So you look at this, there's a 5.7 margin of, error there for Houston. There's probably a better way for me to say that, but that's what I've got right now in terms of they create about 5.7 more turnovers than they give up per game. Texas Tech is only about 2, just a little above it, 2.1, as you can see. Overall, this is going to be critical. If Texas Tech can stay in that margin of probably less than 12 turnovers, I think you have a great chance of winning the basketball game. The difficult part is, on average, Houston creates about 15 per game. Okay? Now, the assist-to-turnover ratio for Texas Tech is pretty good. It's 1.6, second best in the Big 12. That's some good stuff right there. But overall, as I get back onto the screen here, I think that there's multiple ways to look at this for Texas Tech. Okay? First and foremost, you have to limit the turnovers. I think that's a given, right? That's probably a Captain Obvious type statement from me. You have to win the rebounding battle, and that is much easier said than done. But I think you have to win it because you have to limit the second chance opportunities from Houston, because Kelvin Sampson's team, when you give them more than one opportunity on the offensive end, I promise they're going to capitalize, because much like Texas Tech, Houston can shoot the absolute lights out of the basketball. When is the best time to shoot a three? After an offensive rebound, okay? And if you give Houston and their plethora of snipers on the outside more than one opportunity to have a chance at 3 points, they're probably going to capitalize more often than not. Texas Tech has to be great on that side of the floor in terms of really just sending an extra guy to the glass, making sure they box out, and then getting out in transition and seeing if they can get some easy buckets in transition. Now, again, easier said than done, no doubt about that, considering you may not have D5, right? And if you don't have D5, that drastically impacts this game a lot more than it did against TCU. TCU and Houston are on different planets, damn near playing different types of games in general. If Houston is playing basketball, TCU is playing cricket in terms of the level of those teams, okay? And maybe I'm saying that because I don't like Jamie Dixon, but it is what it is. Who cares, right? But there is not a lot of margin for error here. And the big thing is we can go ahead and look at the Bart Torvik aspect of it for the Red Raiders in terms of where he has Texas Tech in this line, as it's pulled up on your screen right there. Red Raiders coming in with a 5-game win streak. He thinks, and so does Kenpom, by the way, they're really close on their lines, that Houston is going to open up as about a 12-point favorite in this one. And I think that that's fair. I really do. Houston is really good. They're the best team in America, in my opinion. And well, best team in America not named Auburn, and maybe Duke. But I think they're right up there, and there's a clear top three at worst, and you're playing on their home court. It's really going to come down to this. Can Texas Tech get hot from the outside, limit the turnovers, limit the second chance opportunities for Houston, and they have to win the rebounding battle in this one. They have to. If it's even close, I think Texas Tech needs to win the rebounding battle by at least 4+ in this game to have a shot. And it's going to be super, super difficult to do that. But as you can see right there, Bart Torvik has the line set at about just over 12. I think that's a really good line. It wouldn't surprise me at all if it opens up at like 12.5 and then moves down and fluctuates a little bit. But that's going to be a critical game for Texas Tech, and you don't know if you're going to have D5. You just don't know yet.